If you think hiking poles are just for balance or saving your knees, you're missing out on one of the best fitness hacks for outdoor lovers over 50. What if I told you that by changing how you use these poles, you could burn 20% more calories, engage 90% of your body's muscles, and actually take pressure off of your joints all at the same time? Hi, I'm Adrian with Outdoor Informed, and I help active folks over 50 plus maintain the mountain lifestyle that they love and stay active. And today I'm going to show you exactly why Nordic walking beats regular hiking for fitness and some simple technique tweaks that you can use to experience this for yourself. You know, most of us use trekking poles kind of passively, just tapping them as we go along. But today we're talking about Nordic walking, and it's not just walking, it's four-wheel drive for you. And so I'm going to show you some of these techniques. So there is a difference between trekking poles versus Nordic walking poles. And, I have traditional trekking poles here. And one of the main differences you'll see between trekking poles and Nordic walking poles are the straps. The Nordic walking poles are going to have more of like a hand grip, like you can actually put your hand into it. And so it wraps around your wrist a little bit, and it's a little different. And they tend to be single poles. They do have telescoping ones similar to what I have here. I have trekking poles because I tend to do more hiking out on the trails, and these just work better for me. And honestly, you can use them for both purposes. You just kind of have to think about a couple of the different things to consider, and I can kind of talk about that with you today. So let's talk about that four-wheel drive concept that I mentioned earlier. And what it really means is that you're basically engaging more of your muscles in your body, right? You're gonna engage your triceps, your lats, your core, and you're gonna kind of walk into a full body workout. And so when you're walking normally, kind of legs only, right? You're just, walking. Of course, you're not doing anything with your upper body, and that does make a difference. But when you're actually using these poles, you can engage all those other muscles. You're actually pushing off. And when you take a step, you're going to keep these behind your foot as you walk here, and you're going to basically push off as you walk. So that engages your whole body. You're going to engage your core, like I said, your triceps, and you'll really notice this when you start walking this way. So it really doesn't take much to engage. It's super easy, and this will actually, as I mentioned, it'll burn 20% more calories, which is pretty surprising actually, because it doesn't really feel like it. But you tend to use so much more of your upper body muscles that you're just kind of burning more fuel without really feeling much harder. None of that feels much harder to you. So it's pretty impressive. And there's been lots of studies on this. You can actually look that up. And because you're using your upper body muscles, you're going to burn more fuel. It requires more effort from you, and that's how you're going to burn more calories. And it really doesn't feel much harder when you're doing it. It's just that you're engaging more of your body and your core. So it's really good for you to just get a bit more of a workout out of your walks and your hikes than you would otherwise. So common mistakes that you might run into are keeping your elbows too bent. If your poles are too low, you're going to have your arms down like this, but this is not what you want. You want your arms at a 90-degree angle so that you should have a perfect 90 here or close to it. And that's going to give you the best actually position for your walking. And it's because you want it kind of shoulder width. You want it that height so that you have leverage. So as you step, you can push off with that and engage those muscles without it feeling awkward. If you're too far down, it's going to feel weird. If you're too high up, it's also going to feel weird, and it's really not going to do as good for you. And another thing that you want is you don't want a death grip on your poles. Don't be squeezing them super hard. The whole idea, and especially with Nordic poles with the hand grip, you almost let them go as you're stepping. You don't have to hold on to them hard. You use the straps to actually do the work for you. So that'll really help if you just allow the straps to kind of do the work. I mentioned earlier too, placing your foot in front of the pole. Like, you don't want your pole way out in front of you like this when you're stepping. You actually want your foot out in front of it so that you're pushing off of the pole, and that's going to give you better leverage, and it's going to be the more correct way to do it. If you're reaching out here like this, it's not doing the same thing for you. You need the leverage behind you so that you can engage those muscles and push off. And that's what gives you kind of that four-wheel drive mobility, is that pressure that you're able to push down. And you can use just your straps. You don't have to have a tight grip on here. The straps work right as long as you're holding them right. So let me just talk about that real quick, about putting these straps on right, because there is a right way and a wrong way. Now, if you go down through the top of the strap and you put them like this, A lot of people do this. That is a common thing, and it's wrong. You shouldn't do it that way. And there's a reason, and that's because if you were to fall, you could actually put pressure on your thumb like this and actually dislocate it, or worse. What you want to do is you want to come up through the bottom of the strap, right, like this, and then put the strap through your thumb and your first finger and grip it like that. So you should have the strap going around your wrist kind of like that, and it actually gives you a nice good grip right like that without even holding on to the pole. So just make sure that you come up through the bottom, put your thumb and your forefinger over it, and make sure that thing's wrapped around your wrist, and then you got a nice grip. And that's also nice too, because if you have to drop them, you don't have anything in the way, and it's going to be safer for you if you have to fall. And sometimes we fall. Ideally we won't, and part of using trekking poles is that we don't do that as much. It gives you a lot of balance. So for trekking, out on the trail and stuff, these are awesome for balance, navigation, and also reducing some of that stress on your legs and your joints and your back and such, especially when you got weight in your pack. So anyway, that's the right way to hold them, and I hope that's helpful for you. Now, I have a pair of Lecky poles, and these are carbon. These are nice. I've used these a ton. I used these in my video for my 14ers, and these things were just lifesavers because I was carrying a pretty heavy pack, and man, climbing around with all that for so many miles, these just save your back and your knees and your joints so much. They really made a big difference. You don't have to spend $200 on poles to start. There's lots of options. I actually will put a few links down below the video for you, and I am in the affiliate program with Amazon, so by using these links, you're helping me out, but I do make a small profit off those, so they pay me a little bit if people use the links. Anyway, I'll put a few links for these, and also there are different boots that you can use on these if you're doing just Nordic walking. I have these are more for trail. I have bigger baskets too for snow. So, and then if you're using Nordic walking on, say, a walking trail or just a hiking trail, you could use actually rubber boots that fit over these, and they just have a flat end and kind of a rubber thing, and you don't have to listen to the tick, tick, tick of these little carbide tips. These are nice for mud and for rocks, so that's what I'm typically on, which is why I have that. And I have these small baskets for snow. I don't use them as much in the snow, but sometimes snowshoeing I do, so I do have some big baskets that I'll use for that. I'll put some links to some of those different things as well. So depending on your needs and kind of what you do more, you can pick the type of poles that work for you, but I highly suggest the Nordic walking. It's going to be a great way to up your fitness, use more of your core and your other muscles, and it's just a great way to get exercise, which is what this is all about. So thank you so much for joining me today. You guys have a great day.